tell my inner child I'm sorry for everything you had to go through. It started as a child. I wish that I was stronger in situations that I had to go through. I'm trying to press it now.
Welcome back to another episode of Talks with Two. It's Intute, your host. We got another episode for the Chicago edition. Today, I have another special guest, Mr. Josh Lucas. How you doing today?
I'm doing good.
I'm glad to have you on the show. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Josh?
A little bit about me. I'm just a boy from Chicago, born and raised. I love Chicago. I think it's the best city in the world. Obviously, a lot of other people do too. I am raised by my grandmother. I have three other siblings, all sisters. I'm the youngest of my entire generation. I'm the last boy. I'm the only boy. I'm the last grandchild, and then the baby of my siblings. So people would rather say I had it my way kind of growing up, but I'm actually more dependent. I love fashion. I love people. I love passionate people. I'm passionate about music. I'm passionate about things like art and all that just drives the world. I was raised again by my grandmother, who my mom passed away when I was 2 months, so my grandmother brought me up. Never met my father, and that's okay. But that's who I am. I'm somebody who is passionate about what they do, and yeah, I like a good time. In my spare time, I like shopping. I like impacting people. This has become my thing. Activism. It's always been my thing. I just didn't know how to become that. I think a lot of people don't. But all in all, that's it. And I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be a part of this. This is a much needed talk. So thank you to the incomparable Savitra who made this happen. Thank you to you too, who decided to bring me on, who saw and heard my story and my why, most of all, and decided that it would impact. So glad to be here.
You're welcome. I'm just glad to have your time, and I'm just real interested in diving into a little bit about what you do and what you're planning to do. So can you give us some insight on your childhood growing up in Chicago?
Yeah. Growing up in Chicago, it was fun. I get my drive from Chicago. Like they say, if you grow up in Chicago, you can grow up anywhere. You can make it anywhere if you grow up in Chicago. Chicago teaches you how to navigate a lot of life. Chicago teaches you it teaches the edge that you need to go off into the world. A lot of people don't have that. That's the fun thing about the Midwest. You get these people, they're arrogant, but they have this certain drive, this hustle, this momentum. I was raised in Inglewood, as some would beg to be the most roughest neighborhood probably in the world. Everything about Chicago comes from the low end. So when people hear me speak, they're like, "You're from the low end?" I'm like, "Yeah." People from the low end are educated too. They speak well too, you know. But growing up, I was raised 53rd in Princeton. By my grandmother again, and two flat. We were economically suppressed. I won't say poor. And I still love Chicago. Now, our grandmother made better decisions. I wound up going to a prep med school. I thought I was going to be a doctor. Shame on me, fool on me. I was going to be a heart surgeon. And then I discovered real estate. So then I got into real estate and I started practicing as a broker. It was very, very, it was one, fun. That's when I found my love for people. Two, I found the essence of sales, and I became aware of what it means to sell. But three, what I always found myself doing is getting clients, and then, so I would go on tours with these clients. I was a leasing agent, right? And I would always have this impact, and people would just start talking. And my manager would get so mad because she'd be like, "Why you not back yet?" These people sat in here and told me about they got cancer, their son dying, and I was like, "Ooh." And that's when I found my love, not for just sales. I found my love for people.
Right.
And I found out how to understand them, and I wanted to understand them more. So growing up in Chicago taught me that. It taught me how to understand people, taught me fashion. It taught me all of that. I didn't have my dad. I didn't have a mom. And so growing up, I struggled with identity as in not who to be, but like, where do I come from?
Right.
Because you don't know your origin. You know how some people hear some people say, "You act just like your mama." I never got that. You know what I'm saying? Because I never knew my mom's like personality or whatever or whatnot. But that's part of my upbringing, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for it. I used to despise it, but I'm coming to terms with that's just how life shapes us. And I wouldn't be all this had I not been all that. So you look
Right.
back and you be grateful.
Right. So, at what age did you find out about what happened to your mother?
Fun question. Our family lied about what happened to my mother. They weren't honest, and I think they did it to protect us. So we thought that she had died of like a heart issue or cardiac issue, cardiac related issues, but it was a drug overdose, and I felt betrayed a little bit because I felt like that was something we knew, and something we should have knew, and I felt like I had the right to know that, you know. So I found out when I was about 14 years old. The stories just started unfolding and coming out, and my siblings started telling me like, "Hey, this is really what happened to mom."
Right.
And I had this grudge against my grandmother because why would you lie about that? Because here I am participating in drugs, and maybe if I had known that, I would have steered away. So I was like, you know, you should have told me that. But that's what I found out. But again, it taught me how to advocate.
Right. And when you say you were participating in drugs, what do you mean by that?
Not hard drugs, but like still the marijuana. I still consider alcohol a drug. We found alcohol young. Our cousins was drinking it. We was in Delph like around age 13, 14,
Right.
which is insane if you think about it. For the average, like, what do you need? What are you dealing with at that age to have to suppress it through alcohol? So our older cousins just doing what they do, like normal kids do. It was trendy. We were doing it, and we were having a ball. So, but just knowing that, I feel like knowing the truth of how my mom actually passed, I would have stayed away. You know, so
Right.
we dealt with that. We're still dealing with things, hard things, but we can do hard things.
Right. So, like, just hearing the story, about your mom, were there in that moment, because you say you were 14, right? So that's about what, middle school?
Yeah, like the becoming of age.
So, like, how did that affect you mentally? Like you said you were feeling betrayed. You felt betrayed. So how did that affect you mentally at that moment, at that time? Because I know now, you use it as a stepping stone and, that's part of what you're doing today. But if you
Yeah.
can think back to that moment of how it made you feel.
It made me feel that I couldn't trust some of the key people in my life. And I get they were just trying to protect us, right? We were kids. There's no way you could lay something like that on a child. But I was already dealing with that. And, I think we often talk about midlife crisis. We don't talk enough about like how teenagers have to navigate and how they too have to deal with the becoming of age, the peer pressure and all that. So all that piled on top of that was a lot. And I was trying to navigate that, but I felt betrayed by my grandmother, and I let her know that. And that's the funny part. I felt anger from my mom because I feel like, oh, you should have done better. You had children,
Right.
So it's like I have all this anger. I don't know where to aim it. So what do? I just drink alcohol.
Right. And when you communicated your pain to your grandma, like, what was her reaction?
My grandmother, so you have to understand like how my grandmother is. She has 19 siblings. She was raised in an era where people didn't apologize. She was raised in an era where you take it and you get a lick and you keep on sticking. You figure it out. You don't ask your parents why. They didn't exist and where they grew up. So she too mirrored that. Since then, she's grown. We had a conversation a while back, and she was able to apologize. But back then, I just felt like it wasn't much of her response was like,
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Or she felt like she maybe hadn't owed me that. But it did cause like a big disparity in our relationship, and we're still working through that.
Right. Now, as of today. So, so your coping at that point was turning to alcohol.
A bit of it. It was alcohol, but it was also acting out. Excuse me. It was ditching class. It was, now I want to piss these people off because they lied to me. So what can I do? Definitely send my grandmother through hell. And even then, I couldn't do it.
Right.
My cousins would sit there through the rings. But, you know, I've always been like a good kid. But I started like, that's how I would cope. I would stay out late, just become a bad kid because I feel like I don't get a mom anyway.
Right.
Nobody really cares. Might as well. So it was a bunch of different ways to deal with it. But yeah.
So, you say you have siblings. So, how did your siblings feel about it? Like, did they know? Did they find out at the same time that, or like everybody knew, and then like you were the last one?
Yeah, exactly. That's how it went. My elder sister Kiki was 10 years old when my mom passed. I was 2 months. 2 months. So she died February 3rd, 1993. I was born December 15th, 92. So I don't have much of a memory, but my sister who knew, and she knew how my mom died, I found out through cousins who were just like tired of the lies and was just like, no, this is how your mom died. And it was like, if anybody deserves to know, you deserve to know. Now, my sister, she had gone through this whole ring of like sexual assault, being put into like a home and all that. So she kind of knew. So she was 10 years old. She has a pretty good memory of what happened to her mom. But then there's me. I'm stuck scratching my head like, who am I?
Right.
So they decided I knew, and they wound up telling me it affected them as it affects and transcends anybody. It's like, no matter what we do, we're not getting a mom. And that's
Right.
that was kind of hard for all of us. That's for all of us. I won't be selfish and say just me.
And as far as like your father go, like was he just absent?
Yeah, I've never seen him. If the man walked past and knocked on that door, I wouldn't know who he was. And I said something I can laugh about now, right?
Right.
At first, it makes you sad, but then it inspires you, you know. And I don't know. I think the good part about growth is that it's to say I don't know what he was dealing with. I don't know why he didn't come around. And it took me a while to get to that point and working through that and seeing that, you know how hard that is to be able to look at your stuff and say, my is a mess, but still want to find forgiveness to give to someone else is a powerful place to be because a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people say, F him. I have nothing against that man. Nothing. If he's watching this, if he ever sees this, nothing. Grace.
So how did, you know, not having parents, you know, shape you?
It didn't. That's the thing. It doesn't shape you. You got to figure out a way to shape yourself. You have to figure out who you want to be in this world, in any space, any geography, any platform. That's why I always say the cup is half full. I don't care. I don't care what you do with it. You can look at this and say, I'm going to be angry. I'm going to use my father as a catalyst to treat people like every day I wake up. If I go to jail, my family got to bail me out. I'm going to say, because I have a dad. That's why I'm acting out. Or I could say, yeah, I didn't have a dad, but.
Right.
Because the story is mine. The pen is mine. I can write the story. So it changed me in a way that I'm grateful for. There are black boys, and my nephew is one of them going through it right now. His father's walking around, but he does not want to be involved with him. Do you know the agony that must bring? I don't know what my father is, so I can make these stories up in my head about nothing, out of sight, out of mind. But then there's my nephew who is saying, my dad is right around the corner and wants nothing to do with me. So when you look at your stuff, and I love this quote, it says that if we all put our problems in a circle, in a pile, we gladly snatch some of ours back compared to what other people are dealing with. I would much rather have that than have my nephew that would tear me completely apart. And I feel like God knows. He knows what you can do. He knows what you can deal with, and he gives you each according to your bearing. God knows this is too much for Josh. Let me not. You know?
Right.
So, no, it changed me in a way that I want to advocate for black boys. I want black boys to know that broken crayons steal color. You can steal color with a broken crayon.
And so what inspired you to found a mental health advocacy program on empowering men to speak up about their feelings?
Yep, absolutely. Because I didn't know how to do that. I remember I flunked out of, I didn't get into law school. And I wanted to go so bad. And one day I'm sitting in the library, minding my business, and this is how life and this is how depression, this is how anxiety shows up at your front door when you're busy living. And I'm minding my business, and I'm like, something is off. It felt like I was living in a world, existing, but I couldn't touch something. And my heart started beating fast. I'm like, something is wrong with me. So I'm thinking, again, cardiac, I'm thinking, I'm having a heart attack. I'm having an anxiety attack. And I'm like, I wonder how long I've been dealing with this. Because so many men, so many people do not know they have anxiety. I had it since I was a kid. It was just undiagnosed.
Same.
Because nobody looked deep enough and said, hey, I had a grandmother that said, pray it away. I had a family that said, pray it away. We're going to fast and blah, blah, blah. Nobody said, no, let's go get a doctor. Let's take a deeper look. So I always tell people that mental health ran in my family until it ran into me. Because somebody in the family has to do something about this. When I look around, we talk about mental health, we leave men out of that conversation way too often. We believe men don't cry, or we punch our sons in the chest. Stop acting like a girl. We often send the notion to younger boys that only girls cry. Only girls are allowed to have emotion. So what do men do? They grow up and they suppress them. And they say, well, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to look weak. A man's biggest fear is looking weak. So when I heard that, I said, I want to do something. But nothing was more the fire under my eyes. Like my friend Michael Jacobs, who committed suicide, who dedicated his life to Africa on a mission to save Black children. Michael Jacobs was Iranian. So my foundation is called Mental Health, a Michael Jacobs Foundation. I've dedicated this to him. This is for you, who decided to, and we're very careful around the verbiage that we say, who decided to end his journey. Michael Jacobs, so when I thought I wanted to be in real estate, a doctor, I thought I wanted to be a doctor. Michael Jacobs was an Iranian man who owed this little Black boy from the ghetto nothing. He marched up to Louis A. Weiss Memorial Hospital in front of these big surgeons, and he got me access to Dr. Henry Finn, who created the hip and knee replacement. These big surgeons, and I was accepted in that room because Michael Jacobs decided that Black boys can too. And although I never will pursue a career in medicine, although I will never be a heart surgeon, I don't want to be, because I truly believe that through my foundation, what we do, there's more than one way to fix a heart. So I dedicated this to him, and he dedicated his life to Black children in Africa. And when he came back, he left he was making $250,000. And he gave all that up and walked away to go to Africa and to advocate for poor children. And when he got back, he couldn't find work. And he started heavy drinking. And he called me one day and he said, Josh, he said, do you have any work for me? And I was like, no. Now, I had started my real estate brokerage, but I hadn't done much with it, so there's no way I could hire him. And I said, no, unfortunately, Mike, I don't. But I felt like he suppressed so much. He sat in the corner at church, and we thought he was happy. We thought he was okay. We thought he was fine. We thought he was rich. And he wasn't. And nobody took the initiative to look a little deeper and say, why is that person always smiling? Because we can't no longer make the notion, hey, you see someone always happy, and that's the first indication that something is not right. There's no way you're happy every day. You cannot be happy. So when I see people like that, I'm like, are you okay? Don't tell me about the new car you got. Don't tell me about the house you have. How are you? So I dedicated that to Michael Jacobs, and he is just part of my why. But so that people could know that men too deserve a safe space. A space where shame goes to die. Shame cannot live if you have a space where you don't allow it. And the only way to really do that is we create a ripple effect and we say, hey, me too. I lost my job too. And other men will speak up and say, wait, me too. And if you find that courage, then you'll often find you're not alone.
Right.
And that's why I started Mental Health Foundation.
So are there any public figures or role models you look up to that have possibly influenced men's mental health outside of the person you just mentioned?
There are a couple really big names. Some of them are some of my closest friends, the Flemings family, the American Suicide Foundation, who we work with and we partner with. I just finished the Out of the Darkness walk, which is dedicated to suicide victims who have gone on. There's so many to name, but personally it would be the Flemings family, my friend, Vernisha, whose family was affected, who lost her son and nephew in the same week due to that. So, yeah.
And can you elaborate more on your mission to ensure that every voice is heard?
Yep. It doesn't stop at just awareness. A voice is not enough anymore. We got to stop the bleed, and the only way to do that is to make sure that black men, especially black men, who make up almost 70% for suicides. That the scary part is that every 40 seconds, someone will commit suicide. 1 out of 4 people will commit suicide. 3 of those people, 75%, will be men, because we still have not learned how to stop the bleed. So by the time that by the time that we leave here, by the time we're done interviewing, how many casualties will we already have? Because someone didn't stop and say, are you okay? So the work is not just interviews, and although these help to raise awareness, not interviews, and it doesn't stop there. It's getting up and taking action to make sure it's charging the government and saying, I don't care about that. When you suppress the economy, do you understand what's happening? When people lose jobs, it transcends to mental health issues. Like, do you understand? Like, it's so much work to do that people don't even understand it, but making sure that people have access, that when black boys call the police, they won't be seen as a threat. He shouldn't die when he called you, whoever. And it's not a racial divide. It affects all genders. So I want to make sure that people, I love my people, but people have access to healthcare. The only thing is that when I joined and when I talked to this Chicago School of Psychology, they said there's not enough black people. There's not enough of us. So one is that I want to build out a scholarship fund to give to students who want to pursue a career in psychiatry, which we've already started. We're working on that, and I'm glad to be doing that. I want to see more black faces. I want someone who says, I need to talk to somebody who looks like me. Because when I walk in, that's not relatable. I get you, and thank you for, taking my case, but you don't get me. I need somebody who gets me. One thing I love about the Bible is it says that we overcome by evidence. We need to see people who look like us doing it.
Right.
We need to see people who look like us. So that's my mission, to make sure that we do more work, and it starts in healthcare. So
how do you create an environment where men feel safe and comfortable expressing that they are not okay? Like, what would be your approach?
My approach would be, as what we did recently, we marched into a cafe. Well, we didn't just march, but we sent an email saying, hey, this is what we do. This is our mission. I'm also a part of this cafe. I would like to start these small groups. Just a small group. A few people can change so much. And we went to the cafe, and the cafe owner was like, this is a great idea. Never heard of it. Safe spaces, again, are created when you can say something without shame. Hey, I'm broke. I don't know how I'm going to feed my family tonight. And somebody look over and say, dang, that brother just said that. Wow, that's powerful. When you can speak up about where you are, you give other people, you pass the baton, and he can now say it. And it becomes a ripple effect. So shame. If we do everything where we take away shame, man, so many people would stay here. So many people would still be here. And it's so funny that we call out these big names. We know about Robin Williams. We know his story. But what about the small people on a small level, the Marks of the world, who took his life? He was deaf, and his family turned him away for being gay. And he felt misunderstood twice. Not just by the world, not that I'm shut out by the world because I'm deaf, but also that my family is, I'm facing. So that kind of thing, what if Mark felt heard?
Right.
You got to make people feel heard. I don't care what you say. Somebody can listen to you all day But if they hear you, it'll never change anything. How do we hear more men? By creating that space that says, you can speak up in a world that will listen. Because if somebody's talking and we just keep covering our ears, nothing happens.
Right.
And if nothing changes, then nothing changes. So that's what we do. We create safe spaces. We go into coffee shops and we propose these small group meetings where men just come and just say, hey, me too. And I break the ice and I say, hey, this week, the money wasn't what it was last week. And other men would be like, brother, me too. And that goes home to give them a little bit more courage to survive tomorrow. That they can put that medicine bottle down. They can put that knife down, that gun to their head. They don't have to do that because they realize, like, I'm not a freak if I can't make ends meet. And sometimes it's not your fault. But that's how you do it. You create a safe space without shame.
So how do you engage the community? And why is community involvement important in mental health initiatives?
Yeah, because it's a challenge for all of us. Because this is not just a Josh duty. This is your duty. This is everybody's duty who hears and knows. It's your duty. So we charge community. That's why we love community events, because we come in and we get a chance to say, hey, you got a lot of men in this community. It's male dominated. What if we did this? Mm-hmm. Especially in underserved communities and in the low end of Chicago, where I'm from, and going into those communities and saying, like, we need to do this because blah, blah, blah. So I sit on the board, and we're now working with a huge corporation that's getting ready to give almost $10 million to create jobs in a community. And that is going to change so much because now a man can provide for his family. Right. He can put money in his own pocket. He can do so. That's how we do. We charge community. When we go to the alderman, we say, hey, this is what's happening. I don't care if you think that the next infrastructure or railroads is what's going to affect blah, blah, blah. BS. Because what if you don't have nobody to drive? Then what? Because everybody committed suicide because they can't. You see what I'm saying? We have more important issues to focus on. So it's charging political leaders, it's charging activists, it's charging the everyday citizen, the everyday person that you see to say, hey, are you aware that this is happening? And that's why you keep putting it in their face. You keep listing the statistics every 40 seconds. We've been doing this. We've probably been recording for about 15 minutes or so. How many people have gone on? And you charge them with the numbers. All it takes is 3 seconds to say, are you okay? How are you?
Right. So in what year was mental health established?
It was established last year. So June when Michael Jacobs decided to go on. So a little over a year. We're brand new. We're still in our stages. But I love that people are welcoming us with open arms and saying, hey, we never thought of it like that. And although it's not gender-based, it's gender inclusive. Because we got to hold more men's hands and say, like, hey, women face that, but they do too. They don't deserve to be left out of that conversation. Right. No. So over a year, we plan to do so much more work. And we're excited. I'm super excited. It is this beautiful, ugly thing. It is not easy. It makes you cry at night because you think about all the people that I didn't get a chance to get to. That makes you sad. Or what if I had started sooner? Right. 10 years ago, how many lives would I have saved? And I think about that when I think about my cousin who lost his life just shy of not even a month to suicide because he was having a psychiatric episode and they released him prematurely from the hospital and he drowned because he didn't receive the proper health care. And that's why this conversation, it has to be continued. That's why, the previous guest, I felt so in sync with her because I said, dang, me too. And it gave me the power that I'm telling this story and I'm not alone. And I'm like, wow. And it's so crazy that I'm sitting of a woman who lost her son and she's sitting with a son who lost his mother. And that's how beautiful God is.
And I do want to ask, how did you feel to hear that her other son is getting help?
That was the only thing that made me that's some hope. And that she is an advocate for health. But not only that, she mentioned a couple key points. Acceptance. She said, I don't care if I was raised in a church, that is my son. And we need, how many people would be alive if their parents would just say, I do not care
Right.
what you are. You belong to me. And it's the world, if they want you, they got to come to, I don't care what you are. She kept reinforcing, that is my son, and I love that. Acceptance changes the whole game. We all just want to be accepted. I don't care how old you get. I don't care how strong and dominant your personality is. At the end of the day, we all want to be two things: loved, heard, and accepted. Not for who we are, but for who we aren't. And her son wasn't the average person. Right. She mentioned the things he was, the things that the world would turn their nose up at. But she said, I don't care. I loved him. And I'm sure now that her son is like, that she still has, and she's getting them therapy. And it's saying that I'm Kojic. Do you know, like, the Kojic church is probably one of the most judgmental, almost cult-like churches. They don't play no mess. They will kick you out. And we can argue if it's biblical or how we may feel, but Kojic church has never been known to be accepting. To hear that she diverted from that, what I know, how I was raised, she said, F that. That's my baby. That was amazing. But to see her son is getting help means that we got some hope, because we need that.
Right. And in the nonprofit world, what are some things that you've struggled with in this journey that you had just started, starting up your nonprofit?
One that I will tell you that is probably funding. People usually want to, when I work for Yelp, people always would only buy my product if they knew the benefit of it and if it had value to them. Sometimes people don't want to hear about mental health because they don't care, it don't affect them. So it's, how do you get these people to, one, care enough where they go in their pocket and write you a check? So that's one. I think you battle with, am I doing the right work? Should I just go back? Should I drop this and say, forget this? So you battle with a lot of that. So that's been one. Finding a good team. You need a really good team. You need a solid team, the mind, the money, and the muscle. You need all three of those components. You need the muscle that's going to say we strong, ain't coming up, let nobody just take your business. The money, somebody know how to get it in. And the mind, somebody know how to get it done. So I think finding that good team. We don't have the most solid team, but we're new. But we ain't giving up.
Right.
Until all have heard has always been like my mantra. So it's one of the challenges with funding. Are you questioning yourself, am I doing the right work? Is this worth it? Should I just go back and be a real estate agent? It was more profitable. I had money. I didn't have to worry about blah, blah, blah. I didn't have to care. So it's like you question yourself with that. Yeah.
So, what can you name the people? So do you have a board?
Do I have a board?
Yeah.
We don't.
Or it's just a group?
It's a group of us. So we're still establishing our board. I sit on so many other boards that I know I can't occupy. So it's basically family ran. It's me,
Right.
my nieces, who is very, very good. She worked in Lawrence Hall. So we got some people with a bit of expertise. I don't doubt that it will grow. As people see our mission, they do often say, how can I be a part of that?
Right.
So just pulling my network. Thank you to a lot of people over at UIC, Health Connect, the Black Health Connect. So we're still building things out, but I see that I can feel it.
Right.
It's big, and it's needed. So it's me and a small team of 3.
Okay.
Small but mighty.
What are your long-term goals for your nonprofit, and how do you envision its growth in the coming years?
Yeah. My vision is to see a world in an environment where men is just like, me too. And I know that sounds so cliche, but so that I want to transform politics I want to talk more about mental health. I want to get early access. Children, we should not be waiting until children are 15 when they're dealing with issues at 6, 3, 5. I want to remove the stigma. Because you go to a therapist, it's maintenance. It don't mean that something's wrong with you. It's preventative. We're trying to prevent something from being wrong. I want more voices to be heard when they speak up and say, I'm not okay. I want police to be trained on reform, on how to treat mental health victims, if they should be dispatched to them, because too often that it ends how Alterix did. I want to change the world in which we not see mental health, but how we treat it.
Right.
Because it will always be there. Suicide is now the 11th leading cause of death. That's scary. The 11th leading cause of death. It's climbing, and those numbers are staggering, but they're not going to change, and they're not going down. But that's what I want to see, to build a big mental health museum, to give millions of dollars to kids, black kids who want to go, so that when a black person walks in, a black kid, they can see a black person. That is the ultimate goal. But to know that some small group of people saw an issue and changed it, and we changed the world globally, is that's the only thing I want to do, is just get people to open up about where they are. If we do that, then the legacy lives on, and then shame dies.
So, as we wrap up, what advice would you give to men who may be struggling with their mental health but are hesitant to speak up or seek help?
I would say, if you can't tell it to somebody because you're scared that they're going to use it against you, then tell it to a stranger. Somebody you don't know. Go walk past a stranger and say, hey, can I tell you something? This is happening to me. Speak to it, because what you don't speak to, you give it power to live. And it just snowballs, and now it's bigger. But I guarantee you, probably not the first stranger, but maybe the second one will turn around and say, me too. And they may not tell your story they may not be going through the same thing, but they'll tell you something about themselves, and you will find that you are not alone. Because you are not alone. There are so many of us, there's me, that says my life is a me too hashtag. I have survived gunshot wounds, suicide attempts, everything you can name. I am an orphan. But I'm here doing the work, and you can too. Your story does not end at the cars you can afford. You are not the food that you cannot put on the table right now. If you speak up, there's somebody waiting to help you. But you got to help yourself, and that starts by saying, me too. And go find a professional. And I know affordability is a thing, but I guarantee you, if you find the courage to say who you are, you often find that you are not alone. So do me a favor, speak up. And I want to say this, a lot of you are going to be okay. You just don't know that yet. Here I am. Didn't think I would see age 30. Here I am at 31. And I'm okay. And I am proof that broken crayons, they do color. So.
And last, where can our listeners or anybody needing your service find you?
Yeah. So I'm on Facebook. I go by Josh the Coach, because I do coaching on the side. I do something called a Confidence coaching course. So Josh the Coach is my IG handle and my Facebook handle. Okay. Other than that, we do everything for mental health. We're still building this thing out, but you can find me on either of those platforms just by going in and putting in Josh the Coach. And you'll see the work that we're doing, the work that we've done. And yeah.
All right, you guys. Well, you heard it here on Talks with Two. We're about to wrap up this episode. Josh, I really appreciate you coming to sit down and talk. And I really love that you are a voice for men, because men most definitely need it as much as us women do. So with that being said, blessings to your journey, and I hope it go your way in the future. All right, that'll be it, you guys. We wrapping it up. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube. Follow us on all platforms. Talks with Two. We out.
I'm sorry for everything you had to go through. It started as a child. I wish that I was stronger in situations that I had to go through. I'm trying to press it now.